Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know it is brought to you by Denim. As a business owner myself, I personally know the importance of financial stability and preserving cash flow to help navigate through any freight market. With Denim's comprehensive service offering, you now have an all-in-one financial partner whose platform includes factoring, payments, freight audit, document collection management, and analytics, which help keep your business financially healthy and increase your team's time to focus on revenue-producing activities. You can also take advantage of Denim's free credit check, which they perform on all of your customers. And Denim will proactively reach out to you if they spot any signs of credit deterioration. Finally, Denim always pays your carriers first. As a broker, this is imperative to preserving your credit score in the market, which ultimately helps you become a broker of choice to your carrier partners. Are you ready to learn more? Visit denim.com to schedule a demo today. Just do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines, but most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. I'm going to save the rest of the intro. You guys know what to do. If you guys get value in what you hear today, which I know you will, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network. But I'm going to bring my good friend up here right now, and we're going to talk about the produce market, what's going on, what to expect this fall out there. He's essentially the Freight Coach Podcast resident produce expert out there. I have him come on all the time. With that being said, I got my man Cody with A&Z back on the show. Cody, what is going on, brother? How are you?
What's up, buddy? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you too. And I think it is an important thing to start the show off by saying Ohio State and Wisconsin fans can commingle.
Yep.
Except for when we play. There's some good shit talking that goes on. It's like, I swear you guys are like multiplying out there. I mean, I know Ken Adamo, our good buddy, and then Clark Wellman, he's another guy who constantly chirps about Ohio State out there. But here we are.
Yeah. I'm a Yankees fan too. So, right. It is what it is.
Are you a Lakers fan?
No, actually, if I watch basketball, like the Jazz, because I'm from Utah originally, right? I really like the Jazz in the 90s with Malone and Stockton, but I kind of like the Mavericks. I really like Mark Cuban, so.
I got you. No, that's fair, man. I don't really follow the NBA much.
Yeah, me neither, honestly.
I will, since we both live in Phoenix, I will say that I'm a Suns fan, and I'll just leave it at that because it's the most basketball I've watched in my entire life outside of college. So.
Agreed.
So,
yeah,
dude,
I'm football through and through, buddy.
I am too, man. And, we were both talking before we started here. Shout out to ASU. ASU starting out pretty solid. I know this isn't a sports podcast at all, but, fuck it, right? Dude, I just, college football is my jam. I could watch any college football game out there. I like the NFL, but I'm not a big NFL, follower. I like to watch the Packers play, being from Wisconsin. I like watching Dallas play. But that's kind of it. I won't really turn on any other games, but college football, bro, I'll watch any college game.
Oh, me too. Me too.
It's, dude. So, all right, back into freight before we lose any of our 7 listeners that we have. No, I'm just kidding. So, dude, what's been going on out there in produce? I mean, I I try my best to not pay attention to a lot of information out there because I feel like it could deter anybody from doing what they need to do to get business and everything.
Right.
But like, you're in the produce market. I mean, you guys do produce, you guys do food.
Yep.
What are you seeing out there?
So it's been a slow summer again, which we were hoping it was going to turn a little bit this year, but it's definitely been slow, especially out of California. California produce has definitely been down a lot this year. I'm not really sure where this fall is going to end up because we're hearing positives about the citrus crop. In fact, we're hearing citrus down in Texas is actually going to start early this year, the end of September, first part of October, which is about 3 to 4 weeks early.
Okay.
But I'm hearing good things about the crop. They obviously got a lot of water down there this year with all the hurricane and everything. So they didn't have an issue there. And then California citrus is supposed to be like on par, for a lot of people who don't know citrus season. It's really heavy during October through April. And they kind of split between like the Fresno, Delano area in California, and then really heavy in Texas. They have a little bit out of Florida, but not a ton. But that's supposed to be pretty positive from what we're hearing. We work with the largest grower of citrus in America, and they had their RFP kickoff last week, and they were kind of going over numbers, and they're anticipating a decent season. Potatoes, I'm hearing potatoes are actually going to have a good crop this year too, up in Idaho. Idaho's already gotten pretty rough. I mean, for those who are moving reefers out of Idaho, the last month has definitely gone from, I think the tender rejections went from like a 2% and they're sitting around at 10% right now.
Oh,
so
wow.
Yeah, it's one of the higher ones in the nation right now. So,
so when you say that is like just for people out there who are newer in the industry and newer to the sales, is that a sign of there's an opportunity for anybody to go up there? That's where drivers should reposition their fleets.
100%.
If they have a reefer, they should get out there because the spot market's recovering at a faster pace.
Yep. Yeah. If I was a driver right now and I had a reefer from October through probably the second week of January, that's really when we feel the capacity crunch, I would be in the Pacific Northwest as much as I possibly could. So you got apple starting, you got the new crop of potatoes starting, and then of course Christmas trees are going to start soon out of there, right? So that whole market is just, from a brokerage side, it's very, very tough during Q4. From a driver side, you guys want to get those $3 and $4 per mile loads, head up to Pacific Northwest.
What would a driver need to do to have a better understanding of what it's like to haul a produce load? So again, let's go back down to, they've never hauled a produce load before. They have a reefer. They want to get up in there. Because $3 to $4 a mile sounds very appealing compared to what other rates are out there in the country right now. Yep. What should a driver expect the first time that they go up in to do this? Like, is there washouts, pallet exchanges, stuff like that?
So, washout, obviously it's got to be super, super clean. And then the thing that I think takes most drivers by surprise is your wait time. Unfortunately, with produce, majority of it's harvested that morning. Apples and onions and potatoes are a little different, right? Citrus is a little bit different too, but you can expect a much longer wait time. The majority of reefer, even dry loads, you're usually loaded within those first 2 hours because nobody wants to pay attention, right? But produce, I mean, you got to strap up, and if you miss your pickup time, like even if your pickup time scheduled for noon, you're probably going to get loaded by 8 or 10 at night, But if you miss your pickup time, you're screwed till the next day, because most of the time they harvest everything in the morning and they only have enough product to fulfill the orders that they have. But if somebody shows up early, they're just loading people, right? So, with produce, the most important thing is check in and get your drivers to understand that it's a waiting game to get loaded. That's why it sucks. That's why we own consolidation facilities, right? Because we have local guys that go do all of our picks and come back and for all of our multi-pick loads, because it's hard, especially when you're running teams. Like if you get a team on like a 2 or 3 picker and each one of those picks are going to take 10 hours to load, you basically just burn 2 days on a team. Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
So wait time is the biggest thing, I think, for produce. And then obviously the cleanliness, make sure you're pulping everything. That's a big thing. Produce is the number one claimed, commodity when it comes to reefers. So you definitely don't want to get loaded with some warm product. Not that anybody does that, but they do that. So just do your due diligence, dot your I's, cross your T's, make sure that you're checking your reefer throughout the entire trip. Us, for example, we have reefer check-ins 3 times a day for all of our carriers.
Yeah.
Right. So you actually physically have to, when you stop to get fuel or stop at a truck stop or whatever, you have to take a photo of your reefer, send it to us, make sure it's running continuous. That's another thing. Make sure your reefer is always on continuous for produce. Don't ever do start stop. You're just asking for a claim. But yeah, just educate yourself. It's a little bit different than running, a dairy load or something like that.
So when you say start stop, for example, are you meaning like if it, say the temperature has to be at 34 degrees, once it's at 34 degrees, the reefer unit shuts down until it gets to 35, then it kicks back on to bring the temperature back down. So it's kind of like just like setting an air conditioning temperature in your
100%.
home. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yep.
I like to I don't ever want to assume anybody who's listening to this show just knows everything that we're talking about on here, because there are a lot of people who tune in that are newer in the industry, and they might be out there cold calling some of these produce shippers, and that question might come up, and this just helps. The show, but like I like to just drop this every once in a while.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, it's I think it's I can't remember what the technical name is, and it's not start stop. I think it's a cycle century or some shit like that. I can't remember what that but basically make sure produce, it's going to always be on the BOL to run it continuous anyways, but usually it's not like big bold letters. So you don't want a full truckload claim, especially if you're doing something like berries or cherries or something that's $150,000. You don't want to get across the country and find out that your reefer wasn't running right.
Dude, so how does a claim processed on that? Because I've heard a lot of horror stories about produce loads out there, and you had mentioned something right at the beginning of the show about like not everybody does this, but there are things that people will claim a load, and it turns out that they sold the product, and then they want you to pay for it. And there's just there's an underworld to this industry that I also like to bring to light when when proper times are saying.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just make sure, like I said, you're dotting your I's, you're crossing your T's. You understand how to get a reefer download. You understand how to read a reefer download. And Sonny brings up a great point too. If you're running on continuous, it will save you fuel. A lot of people think the exact opposite, but it's just like your car, right? Like the most amount of fuel your car is going to burn, like per second, I guess, is when you actually kick it on, right? It's when you turn it over. It takes more fuel to start the engine than to keep it running. Same thing with a reefer unit. It's like a lot of people I hear is they're just trying to save fuel by running it as a start stop. It's the exact opposite, guys. Just run it as continuous. You'll get much better quality. You will have less claims, but to your point, Chris, I mean, there's some shady stuff that happens in produce, and there's a lot of times that you can catch it at the dock, which is the most important thing. That's what we stress to our drivers all the time is, if you're not able to pulp, there's still a lot of companies that won't let you on the dock and pulp. After COVID, they changed a lot of their policies. Just make sure that you're filling out your paperwork correctly. There's ways that you can protect yourself.
George, it looks like George has a question here. He says 3 to 4, so they're staying off spot and calling direct. Is that something, George, if that, are you talking about owner ops here calling shippers direct and producers direct on this? But yeah, I'm just going to run with it that I'm assuming that that's what he's alluding to there. Yep. But I honestly look at it as I don't care what anybody says. If I owned a truck, if I was an owner operator, I would call every shipper that I knew existed to try and get direct freight, right? Because it's the same thing here. If you're a broker as well, you should be calling literally anybody and everybody that moves a full truckload. Like, I think a good thing to kind of touch on here, it's the discovery phase, because it's like when you're calling people for the first time, I think a major mistake that a lot of people make is they go in there and they try and let me bid on your freight. I think the first few times that you're really getting on the phone with somebody, it's got to be more exploratory. You got to see if this actually fits inside of your mold. Like if you're a full truckload broker, I would want to find out about their full truckload opportunities, because how many people out there are like 90% LTL? Okay, that might not be somebody who fits inside of your business and what you're trying to build. Finding out if they actually work with brokers. They might be good right now. Okay. But like, do they work with brokers? Because if they do, that's a yes to me. That's what we need to be searching for, is we need to be searching for those yeses to know, so we can filter through 1,000 different companies to come up with 200 that primarily move full truckload, and work with brokers. Boom. Now that's a targeted list that you can go after.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. I mean, what's that old rule? If you're doing the majority of the talking the first couple calls, then you're failing. Like you should be listening nonstop. So it's like the difference. I always bring this up when I tell people I'm in sales, right? It's sales with what we do is completely different because you're never really cold calling anybody that's looking that day for a new service provider, right? It's not like you're selling furniture or cars. Nobody walks into a furniture store just for fun, right? You walk in there because you need a new couch, right? And so that's an easy sell. What we're selling is a service that these guys are already getting from other people. And, chances are they're not looking for that at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. That's the last thing on their mind. So, yeah, I mean, it's number one is identify what issues they're having, right? Because everybody's having issues. And if you can go in and solve a problem for them, that's the easiest way to open a door.
Yeah. I've tried that other approach, right? Where it's like, oh, you just go in and then you just badger these people. And ironically, I was never able to build a sustainable book of business with that approach. But like when you're going in there and you're trying to think, again, I think the first thing you need to ask is what's your core competency? Mm-hmm. What are you actually trying to go after? Is your core competency LTL? Is it food LTL? Is it full truckload? Is it dry van? Is it reefer? Is it open deck? What is your core competency? And then start directing it towards that. And then find out a little bit more as you kind of progress, because, you can listen to this podcast right here. And in these first 15 minutes, Cody has already listed out like 7 questions you could ask any of your prospects. And that is way more effective than anything that most of us are usually out there saying, which is add me to your RFP. They send a blanketed service listing of 19 different service offerings. And I don't know, like I've seen a rise in shippers actually posting about this on LinkedIn here about how annoying it is that they're seeing. They're like, there's no way that you can do full truckload, LTL, drayage, ocean, intermodal, air, all of this stuff. They're like, that's not a business. Yep. And these aren't like a shipper that moves 1 full truckload a year. This is like the most recognizable tractor manufacturer in the United States of America out there posting stuff like this. So if they're telling you this, all of the clues that are out there are already in front of you on what to do and what to expect. And, when it goes out there and when you're selling, how are you guys, Cody? How are you guys going out there and trying to develop business inside of your guys' niche?
So obviously, we're all food and bev, very, very heavy produce. So we're very seasonal. It's every quarter is different who we're prospecting, right? And what area we're prospecting. But we try and focus on where we already currently have capacity. We're not a load board broker. We try and avoid the load boards as much as we can. Obviously, they're there for a reason. You need to utilize them when you can. But we like to keep our drivers loaded. We always are looking for backhauls. We're very strategic about that too. So if we have a very heavy lane into, Connecticut, for example, out of California, because we do a lot on that lane, we're always prospecting everybody up in that area within, 300 miles that we can get a good backhaul coming back. And then the majority of the time you're going to try and price that based on, you want to make sure that your carrier is getting back and not losing money, but you have to be upfront with your carrier that most of the time, hey, your backhaul, it's not going to pay near as much as your head haul. We're going to negotiate on the front side type stuff. But we try and be very strategic about what we're prospecting. Right now, we're very heavy in the Yuma season prospecting. That's going to kick off here in November. So most of those RFPs are coming out either this month or next month. So we're trying to get out in front of everybody who's going to be down in Yuma that we don't already currently work with, as well as Texas. Like I said, Texas is going to be kicking off here in October-ish. So, we're very seasonal, but we're very strategic about what we're doing. We try to play to our power lanes as much as we can. And then LTL, obviously, LTL, we have certain lanes that we run and we always try and prospect off of that as well.
So are you recommending, because this is something that I personally do as well when I'm trying to go out there and really talk to anybody, if, as long as we can get them on the phone is, we move a lot of freight out of Atlanta, and say, if you're going out of Atlanta into Kansas City, Missouri, what you're recommending here is when you're calling manufacturers or whomever in Kansas City, be very specific about, hey, I'm calling you. We have, these trucks, do you ever list a volume? Like we have 7 trucks landing in here. And then they're all looking to get back into Atlanta because that's where we had originated from. This is really a lane that we're trying to fill so we can keep our trucks moving.
100%. I mean, you can do the whole like blanketed cold call stuff, right? And I know that works, and for some people it works really well. A lot of people it doesn't. But your failure rate is much higher too, right? Like if you don't currently have capacity and you don't understand that lane, your failure is going to be much higher. Your rate of failure. It's very, very easy for us if we already have capacity in the area, right? So I know I can come in with a very aggressive rate. I know I'm always going to have capacity there. So we're not going to be hitting the load boards on the week before the 4th of July type stuff, right? I'm not going to be giving freight back. I'm not going to be calling you and raising your rate on a holiday because, you know, I had to go to the spot board. So we try and focus on where we have capacity. And then that's a good way to get in the door too, because, you know, you could land a Fortune 100 company and your first RFP just run one lane. I actually suggest that anyways, right? It's better to do that. Learn the customer, learn all the nuances that they have, learn to work with them before you go gangbuster. Because if you get a brand new customer and you get 100 lanes awarded to you, you're probably going to fail on some of those, right? And that's not a good thing. Most of the time, if you fail on your first time with a customer, there's not a second time.
What brought you to that strategy? I would like to hear
We failed before. We failed in the past where we came in very aggressive on a bid and ended up taking some losses, ended up losing some capacity that we thought we had, and having that discussion with a Fortune 100 customer and never moving freight with them again was, that wasn't fun. Especially we prospected them for a year and a half, and when we finally got an opportunity, we bit off a little bit more than we could chew. And I don't suggest that to anybody. I mean, just learn the customer, learn the nuances, get on their scorecards. Most customers are going to have a scorecard, right? And the last thing that you want is your first scorecard to come over in red.
Yeah.
So pick a lane that you're very good at, do a great job at it, be competitive on your rates, and then build it from there.
How are you guys finding success in a market like right now? Because, again, I see everything out there just like everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
How are you rallying, and this might be more of like a leadership thing, man. How are you rallying the troops right now to go in and, to get out there and get your dials in and try and show face?
I mean, it's twofold. Like one is obviously just, I always like to say you're only one phone call or one email away from changing your life as a salesperson, right? And I do believe that 100%. So this is a numbers game, unfortunately. And that's number one. And number two is just celebrate the little wins. Sometimes like literally just getting past the gatekeeper somewhere. Sometimes it's getting somebody who is a decision maker to hook up with you on LinkedIn and just starting a casual conversation, because right now you need to be planting the seeds for next year. That's the biggest thing, right? There's always a bull market somewhere, but the freight cycle is going to change at some point in time. And if you're not preparing for it now, and you're going to be calling when everybody else is calling, your chances of success are going to be much smaller. So right now, focus on building relationships. Even if you're not moving any freight for the next year with people, if you're not planting the seeds now for the next time that this market turns, you're going to be losing out on a lot of business.
What changed for you to really hone in on that approach about more selling for the future as opposed to the right now?
I think COVID was a big eye opener, right? Like if we had prospected a lot more heavily in 18 and 19, like strategically like that, we would have been able to, I don't want to say take advantage, but take advantage of the market, right? When it turned. And we weren't prepared. I know nobody was prepared for it, but you should always be thinking it's around the corner. If you're always thinking it's around the corner and you're planting the seeds now for the future all the time, you'll be a lot more successful. So definitely always think that the change could happen, because none of us have a crystal ball, right? Like none of us know when it's going to happen. I keep hearing Q4 might be it, and then late Q1, early Q2 next year. And then I'm hearing some people say not till the end of 25. So it just depends on what you're reading. And quite frankly, a lot of it's just clickbait shit anyways. But nobody knows, but be prepared and always be thinking that way. Like if you don't have a 1-year plan, a 3-year plan, and a 5-year plan, like you're doing yourself a disservice, especially as a leader in this industry, right? You always got to be thinking down the road.
Yeah. That's honestly one of my biggest approaches into business development, right? Because a lot of it is I'm qualifying a lot of these companies, right? Because, ultimately I'm not out there looking for, because it's easy, when no gets thrown out there 99 times. I mean, like the reality is 90% of the calls you make are going to go to a voicemail. At least for me, anyways, 90% of them go to a voicemail. 8% are a gatekeeper who's like, hey, we're not interested right now. And then 2% of the time you might get the actual person on the phone. But my mentality was, because like I'm a competitive person ultimately when it boils down to it. Like I'm the type that I hate losing more than I actually like winning. So it's a lot of it's framing to me, man. Like when I'm going in there, and then furthermore, I hate asking people for things, like absolutely hate it. And that kind of, is maybe not have the best quality as somebody who's worked in sales their entire life. But, that's just a personal thing for me where I started framing it along the lines of like, hey, I'm going to introduce myself and I'm just trying to find out a little bit about their operation here, because anything, you can go to anybody's website and you could maybe formulate something in your head. Some of my best shippers have no online presence at all.
Yep.
But on top of that, though, I'm just going in there because I just want to, again, find out, do they fit into my target market? If my target market's full truckload and food, and do they work with brokers? I think it's a very quick introduction. Hey, I'm just calling, I'm sure you're probably good right now. You don't need to say that, but are you guys moving a lot of full truckload, or do you guys work with brokers? If they tell you that they're good right now and they're not adding anybody, ask them at that moment, hey, do you guys work with freight brokers? If they hang up, they hang up. If not, they might be like, yes, we do, but we're not adding anybody. Boom. At least, again, I'm trying to formulate a list of qualified prospects that have volume, that have full truckloads, that work with brokers. That's the intent behind a lot of my outreach. I'm not naive to think anybody's going to add me to here, start bidding today. That's not who I actually want. Like I want to go out there and I want to go after the customers that it's going to take a little bit to build, but those are the sustainable ones that are out there. Now you might find somebody who adds you in and then they have a lot of volume, and then you could separate yourself right away and become a quality provider for them. I'm not saying that's not going to happen, because it has happened. But ultimately, when you're out there and you're trying to build your book of business, it can get like mentally, it can just mind fuck you. Is really what it is. Because then you start to think that you're the biggest piece of shit on earth, but you're not. It's not you. Yep. Unfortunately, you are the sum of all of their interactions with everybody else up until the moment that you call them. But you should also frame your mind to this. You can be the change if you are, because my mindset is I am the best fucking freight broker in North America. My prospects just don't know that yet. It's only a matter of time before they will, though.
Yeah, that's a great mindset to have. And doing your homework on the front side too, right? Like LinkedIn is a powerful tool. I love hopping on LinkedIn, checking out the company, and you can find out a lot about a company and a lot about the decision makers just on LinkedIn. You don't have to have a lead gen software. I mean, they're great. Obviously, we use one, so I'm a proponent of that. But do your homework on the front side. But definitely don't call somebody like talking about, oh, hey, we move food and bev, and just to find out that they're, auto parts or some shit like that. Right? Like that's the worst thing you can do.
I literally think, 60 seconds of research can save you so much headache. It really will.
And you mentioned some of the guys that'll put you on an RFP after the first phone call. Those are the ones that I'm actually pretty wary of, because most of the time, all they're doing is using your rates as a benchmark for their current carriers, right? So all they're going to do is go in and say, oh, hey, I had three new brokers that we onboarded, and their rates were 10 cents a mile cheaper than yours. So they're just going to beat their incumbents down. That's all they're using that data for.
Yeah.
If you don't have the ability to actually like build a relationship with somebody before you start bidding on their freight, then it's just a price driven, race to the bottom, and nobody wins at that. The shipper doesn't even win at that, because they usually end up getting shitty service. So, but there's a hack to getting past the gatekeepers that we like to use too. Like I have a golden rule of 3. If I can't get past the gatekeeper in 3 calls, I'll actually call them and ask them to transfer me to sales. Because salespeople are less likely to hang up. They'll want to talk to you, right? And I'll listen to them for an hour about everything they want to potentially sell to me. But they're more likely to transfer you, or at least give you the right name to contact, past the gatekeeper than the gatekeeper is. So
yeah, dude, you just got to get creative out there. Ultimately, when it boils down to it, like you're not the first person to go out there and do something. But I also look at it as like, my mentality is, man, is like, dude, I got a family to feed. You know, like I'm not doing anything malicious by taking a strategy like that. Malicious is going in there and, you know, accepting all of their freight and then failing on everything. That's malicious.
Yep.
You know, I'm going out there to try and build a company, you know, and I'm like, no one's going to do this for me. You know, no one's going to go out there and make any cold calls for me. So it's like, I'm going to go out there and do it. And if I get hung up on, I get hung up on. But like that's the, like, honestly, that's the worst. All right. The worst thing is someone's going to hang up the phone on you in cold calling. But I will say this, cold calling will always be at least for the next couple of years in freight, cold calling will always be the most effective way to do it. I wasted 15 months in my business of just strictly emailing, and it really kind of got me nowhere. We've made more progress in 6 months of like being cold call, site visit heavy, email light. We've made more progress in these 6 months than we did in the previous 15 months of being in business. So take that for what it's worth. You guys, honestly, I'm not saying email doesn't work, because it does for some, but for the majority that I'm currently going after, cold calling is undefeated in that.
100%. And site visits, man. I mean, if you can ever meet anybody face-to-face in person, that goes a long ways. You know, I've made plenty of sales at conferences, you know, TIA, DATCon, any of those. I definitely recommend anybody from sales to go to those, because you just never know who you're going to meet. Never know. And I had one that I prospected for over a year, could not get the right person, could not get to the right person who's actually going to like sit down and talk to me about getting on an RFP. Happened to run into him at DATCon last year, started moving freight with him. You know? And the funny thing was he literally was like, "Oh yeah, I recognize your name. You must have emailed me a few times." And I was like, "Yeah, I called you a few times, emailed you a few times." Like, you know, but then the conversation was great after that. And literally it took me a month to start moving my first load with them. So
I think the site in person is the most I think it's underrated. I really do, because I think what you really find out is like, because I've always talked about taking your prospects off of a pedestal. I'm guilty of that. So again, none of these behaviors, I want to sit here and say that I'm immune to it. But when you're out there and you're seeing, like, you actually come to realize, like, these guys are just regular human beings. Like, ultimately, they're real human beings, just like the rest of us, that just want to work hard and provide for their families. And again, it kind of lessens that anxiety just a little bit. And, you know, as we're wrapping up, I will say this: the best way to cure any anxiety you have is just start and go, you know, and it'll get easier and you'll start building that up. But Cody, how does anybody reach out to you guys to find out more?
LinkedIn's the easiest way to reach out to me. You can hop on our website at anztrucking.com as well. Email us directly from there, but I'm very active on LinkedIn. So definitely reach out to me on there if you have any questions or comments, or you just want to bullshit.
Perfect. If you cannot get Cody for some reason, just hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with them direct. But that's going to be it for today. We got a guest coming on tomorrow. We're going to talk about automation. I think we got a couple more coming on later this week as well, you guys. But we're going to continue to do it, continue to bring these different topics out here and break them down more in depth. As always, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.